Coming up on The Cut.
Shooting at a park in New Mexico.
Executive order eliminates the Department of Education.
And talking local, the Ostrich Festival in Chandler, Arizona.
All of this and more coming up on The Cut.
The Cut starts now.
Hello, and welcome to The Cut Network. I'm Andy Ruiz.
And I'm Tyler Abrams.
3 people were killed in a Russian drone attack on Ukraine's capital right before U.S.-mediated ceasefire talks. 150 drones across the country were launched, according to the Ukrainian Air Force, as approximately 100 were shot down. Hirofrey Danilenko said people, quote, in their everyday clothes were running for shelter as he watched the huge flames from across the street in his residential building. The Ukraine president's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, wrote on social media that, quote, Russia is not stopping the fire. Putin wants to keep killing civilians. It must be stopped, end quote. Russia and Ukraine both discussed ceasefire terms that would halt strikes on energy infrastructure, but this deal has not taken effect till talks are finalized in Saudi Arabia. U.S. representatives will be holding separate talks with Russia on Monday, and depending on progress, Ukraine will be holding an additional discussion with U.S. officials as well.
Pressure mounts against education leaders as the Trump administration cancels hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding. Top institutions including Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, and Columbia University placed hiring freezes in response. In particular, Johns Hopkins University laid off over 2,000 employees after it lost more than $800 million from the U.S. Agency for International Development. Spending cuts against education comes as the Trump administration has placed higher education under scrutiny for pro-Palestinian activism and LGBTQ representation in sports programs on campus. While some institutions like Columbia University acquiesced and restricted student demonstrations and reviewed elements of their curriculum, leaders in higher education will have to consider resisting or implementing the demands from the Trump administration as his office moves forward with dismantling the Department of Education.
A terrifying story coming out of New Mexico. Reporter Brayla Berthalter has the story. Brayla?
Last Friday, a shooting broke out at a park in New Mexico, killing 3 and injuring 15 more. The shooting took place at Young Park, located in Las Cruces, at 10 p.m. local time. Police identified the deceased victims as Andrew Madrid, 16, Jason Gomez, 18, and Dominic Estrada, 19. Gomez and Madrid had died on scene, and Estrada later died in the hospital. The suspects arrested and charged on suspicion of 3 open counts of murder are 2 17-year-old boys, a 15-year-old boy, and a 20-year-old man, Thomas Rivas. About 200 visitors were at the park that night when the shooting broke out. The 15 injured victims that were shot in crossfire are aged 16 to 36. All were rushed to nearby hospitals, and some were sent to a trauma center in El Paso, Texas. 4 victims have already been treated and released. Police Chief Jeremy Story said that a fight had broken out between 2 rival groups attending an unsanctioned car show. He said it was, quote, an altercation between 2 groups of people, and that altercation escalated to gunfire between both groups. Chief Story added that the car shows have been an increasing issue leading up to this incident. An investigation is still underway as officials continue to find out what happened. The local community grieves the loss of the 3 victims, and the other injured individuals continue to recover. For the Cut Network, I'm Brayla Berthalter.
Thank you, Brayla. Our hearts go out to those affected by this tragedy. A year has passed since the collapse of the Baltimore Bridge, and it was found that Maryland had not conducted a risk assessment before the incident. There were 6 workers who died that night during the collapse and halted one of the nation's busiest ports for days. Other landmark U.S. bridges have not had the same recommended risk assessments and continue to be a danger. National Transportation Safety Board Chairwoman Jennifer L. Homendy said, quote, frankly, we've been sounding the alarm on this since the tragedy occurred, end quote. Investigators have determined 19 states currently have dozens of bridges that have not been assessed for potential collapse, despite the large amount of vessel traffic passing below. Ms. Homendy said, quote, the collapse could have been prevented, end quote. Yet, the Maryland Transportation Authority said that the safety has always been its top priority and strikes blame on the owners and operators of the container ship that struck the bridge. The NTSB is urging local authority to assess bridges like the Golden Gate Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, and many more across the United States.
This Arizona woman is dedicated to changing lives through photography. Co-reporter Abby Jurek shares her story. Abby?
A West Valley photographer has dedicated herself to bringing the art of photography to South Phoenix kids. Lifestyle photographer Jana Nolan is based in Metro Phoenix. For an hour after school every day, she brings students together and teaches them photography basics in an effort to help them express themselves and their communities. Nolan is able to do this through an after-school program based at the Pioneer Technology and Arts Academy of Arizona called To Live and Die in AZ Kids. Nolan is the co-founder of the program at the Academy, which is a public charter school in South Phoenix. With an extensive family history in photography, 47-year-old Nolan started taking photos when she was just 16. She now shares the love of her art with other teenage kids. Nolan said, quote, "It's like knowing that you make a difference in somebody's life, even if it's just for 45 minutes that we get together, even if it's just us sitting down around this table talking. It just feels good," according to AZ Central. With the launch of Nolan's program being just a year ago, she has only just started changing young lives through photography. For the Cut Network, I'm Abby Jurek.
Thank you, Abby. That certainly is inspiring. A new bill will broaden the conditions which animal cruelty can be charged in the state of Arizona. Introduced by Senator Shauna Bollock last week, Senate Bill 1234, if passed, would add additional penalties to anyone who knowingly, intentionally, or recklessly fails to prevent the suffering of a domestic animal or pet. Anyone convicted of animal cruelty could face charges ranging from a Class 1 misdemeanor to a Class 5 felony under the new bill. The bill has support from the Arizona Humane Society, but will have to pass in the House before being sent to the governor's desk to be approved or rejected.
This annual celebration makes its return. Here with the story is Cut reporter Angel Garcia. Angel.
Thank you, Andy. For the past 2 weeks, the 2025 Chandler Ostrich Festival opened, celebrating 35 years of dedication towards ostrich ranching. Located at Tumbleweed Park, this festival took place over the weekend from March 14th to 16th and March 21st to the 23rd. The festival had live music, carnival rides for all ages, specialty acts, and plenty of food, beverages, and souvenirs. For all my thrill ride enjoyers, this year new rides were introduced. Rides like the King XXL, which swings 20 passengers in 4 galandas to a 90-degree angle at its peak. But don't worry, the festival still has its fan favorites like the giant Ferris wheel, the zipper, tilt-a-swirl, and the super shot drop. The 2025 lineup for musical acts spans multiple genres, including Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers, the Friday Breland, and Natasha Bedingfield, and more. This event has grown into one of the premier festivals in the Southwest, giving its family-friendly attributions and entertainment. This past weekend was the last days to catch up on the fun, so we hope you were able to make it. From carnival rides to concert performances, this year's Chandler Ostrich Festival was a successful event at the start of 2025. For the Cut Network, I'm Angel Garcia.
Now we have sports anchor Celeste Rivas with our update on sports. Celeste?
Thank you, Andy. Let's see what we're looking at for sports this week. Is Aaron Rodgers the Steelers' best quarterback option? The Milwaukee Bucks announced that Damian Lillard has been diagnosed with a blood clot. The Suns beat the Bucks, putting them 10th in the Western Conference. Let's jump right in. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in a tough position right now, as they have 2 quarterbacks on their roster as they await a decision from the 4-time NFL MVP, Aaron Rodgers. The first-time free agent made the trip up to Pittsburgh to meet with Coach Mike Tomlin, team owner and president Art Rooney II, and many other coaches, and still left without making any deals. With the Giants signing Russell Wilson and the Vikings moving toward J.J. McCarthy, Rodgers is left with 3 realistic options: playing for the Steelers, retiring, or waiting for a quarterback-needy team to dial his number closer to training camp. The longer Rodgers takes to make a decision, the more narrow the options are becoming for the Steelers. According to ESPN, Pittsburgh is not going to have a lot of options if Rodgers does not become a Steeler. Turning to basketball, the Bucks star guard Damian Lillard has been diagnosed with a deep vein thrombosis in his right calf, a form of a blood clot. Lillard will most likely be sidelined for the season. In February, Victor Wembanyama from the San Antonio Spurs missed the rest of his season after a deep vein thrombosis diagnosis in his shoulder. Lillard missed the last 3 games, but he has averaged 24.9 points and 7.1 assists in 58 games. The Bucks are fighting for the 3rd through the 6th playoff positions in the Eastern-Western Conference, but suffered a tough loss Monday night against the Suns. We saw Kevin Durant score 38 points, an outstanding performance from rookie Ryan Dunn, and a 20-foot go-ahead jumper from Devin Booker to end the game with the Suns win 108-106. This was a crucial win for the Suns, as they are now 10th in the Western Conference and in the final position for the play-in tournament. For the Suns to stay in the play-in standings and hopefully move up, we need them to defeat the Celtics and the Timberwolves this week. The Trailblazers and the Pacers have to defeat the Kings, and at least the Nets or the Orlando Magic must defeat the Mavericks. There are 10 games remaining. Anything can happen. For the Cut Network, I'm Celeste Rivas.
Thanks, Celeste. A messy situation unfolds in the UK as a group of thieves stole a $6 million golden toilet at Blenheim Palace in 2019. The suspects used sledgehammers and crowbars to remove the toilet from the floor and only in 5 minutes escaped with the piece of art. Prosecutors say that the toilet was dismantled and sold in parts. One of the suspects, Michael Jones, was found guilty of burglary in the British court, and Fred Doe was found guilty for conspiracy to transfer criminal property. When questioned about the use of the toilet the day before the heist, and described the experience as, quote, splendid. This art installation created by Italian artist Marisa Catalian features a fully functional toilet cast in 18-karat gold titled, quote, America. When this golden latrine was installed, visitors were encouraged to interact with it fully to further Catalian's artistic message through toiletry. I would say that's a pretty smelly situation.
Yeah, quite the royal flush.
Thank you for watching The Cut Network.
Be sure to follow us on X at @the_cut_network and at The Cut Network on Instagram.
Have a good night.